So if a woman is investing, we ask her who introduced you to it. They say myself. What the alarming issue is, not really said father.
So how much freedom does the woman really have throughout her life is what is going to define how independent she is. I got an email this morning from a person who said that the husband is familiar with my work over the past few years, and he has always been telling her to take finances seriously, to understand where we have invested and how you can manage it independently. And he said that right until the day he passed a couple of months ago, and she now needs help. At least I think she knows where the money is invested in. There are many cases where the women don't even know. My wife does not want to learn about investing. She's made it very clear to me. I have kept a Google sheet with all my investments and given her access. So just in case she knows, and she knows who to contact, because I keep talking about RIAs, this, that. But she says, you don't help me out in the kitchen. You take my presence in the kitchen for granted. Therefore, I take your role in money management for granted. That works. So don't bother me.
They've called activity bias, these husbands or men who want to take some big risks, invest here, invest there, because they want to talk about it at their next cocktail party.
They want to feel useful, I've done something.
And and then they'll get out of this, and then they'll get into this, and then they'll talk about it again. And then for them, it becomes a competition. Investing is not a competition. And I think because women don't chat about it in their parties, and it's not really a cool topic to talk about, you don't see that kind of crazy behavior that you see in men.
This episode of Let's Get Rich with Pattu is a special one. You know the show is all about you, dear listeners, but on this particular episode, we thought we'd bring an expert in. Somebody who's an expert in the space of investing, a thought leader in her industry. And there's a reason we did that, right? Let me set the premise as well before I introduce our guest to you and say hello to Pattu as well. We realized over the past few weeks that 87% of our listeners on Let's Get Rich with Pattu were male. We have women in our team at Offspin, and they got alarmed about that fact. And we started to question whether it was because Pattu and I are the face of the show, or is it because women don't care that much about money or aren't interested that much about their investments or their future. And we've had the very good fortune at Offspin to see Aditi's work over the past few years, I would say even more than a decade, right? While a fair number of AMCs focus on investor education, Aditi decided many years ago to start focusing on women investor education. And I've seen this over the years through various campaigns, through various initiatives. And it is for that reason that this episode is entirely about women and investing and women taking charge of their investments, that we are thrilled to have you on this show, Aditi. Thank you so much for your time. Welcome to Let's Get Rich with Pattu. And hi, Pattu, how are you doing?
Hi, I'm doing fine. I'm looking forward to this episode.
Pattu has been telling me a lot about how on this episode, we will just be sitting back and listening in, because mostly it is Aditi giving her perspective. And we have a few questions, right? So on that note, Aditi, giving you that fact of 87% of our listeners being male, can you throw light on what you see at DSP as well? Is it similarly skewed? And isn't that worrying?
It is. And we are at maybe 20% women of people who have declared their gender, because that's optional. And earlier they didn't even have a mechanism to capture. You say it's 20% women, but when you call, which is anyway alarming, but when you call the number that they've given, the husbands pick up the phone. So the phone numbers of the husband, which means the husband's really controlling the account, or the brother or the father. So, and a lot of times women, so now this is one part. And the second part is, a woman answers a phone, you can't assume that she's the one making investment decisions. So because she gives the phone straight to her husband, saying, I don't know anything about this document. So if I have to discount all of that, I think I'll get to 10%, if at all. So is it alarming? Of course it is. I mean, we've been doing a lot to try to make women aware of their finances, and on how to manage their finances.
So a very quick question to that, Pattu, and a quick question to you, Aditi. I'm sorry. is now that we've identified that it is a problem, what do you feel the reason behind this issue is? Is it the men in the women's lives?
I wouldn't say it's only the men in their lives, because one thing about the men in their lives is that when we did a survey and they said, who introduced you to investments, a great number of them said, my spouse.
Hmm.
So if a woman is investing, you ask her who introduced you to it, they say my spouse.
Right.
So I think I was pleasantly surprised to know that there were a lot of supportive spouses out there. What the alarming issue is, no one really said father.
Hmm.
And I don't feel parents are playing a role that they should in a girl
Wow.
child's life. That, when as a child is growing up, you talk about investment. You don't only talk to the son, you talk to the daughter. You tell the daughter you have to earn your own money, you'll be financially independent, and you better learn how to manage your money. The mother and father both need to say it. And when we asked a question, would you treat your child, if it's a girl child, if they had a female and a male child? So we only talked to those people. Said, would you talk about investments differently to them? Both the mother and the father said yes.
Hmm.
That I would talk differently to my, like, basically, why would you treat them as equal? So it is, I think, more of the level of the father and parents and what they see at home,
Yeah. This
where
hits
the
home.
father is always in control.
Yeah.
And we need to have more role model mothers. We need to have fathers who encourage their daughters. And I think this is something that DSP will focus on. And this is something that I think everyone should be aware of.
This hits home really deeply, right, Aditi? I have two daughters, and this is something I need to start taking very seriously. Although I shouldn't beat myself up too much about it because I do encourage them a lot, right? When we talk about money and they ask questions, and we go to the ATM and they want to key in the pin and they want to deal with the shopkeepers and they want to know more about the show I'm recording, right? Because sometimes they're next to me while I'm actually recording. And who is Pattu? What is he doing? What is the show you're recording? Is it another audiobook? And so I do involve them, but it's amazing how you've kind of found the root cause of these issues. Um, and thank you for that. And it's reassuring to know perhaps it's not just the men, but perhaps it's the older generation. So having said that, do you see a trend improving with parents getting younger? And do you see an upward trend because you put in so much work? It's been almost a decade of, for example, Shikonomy, that was one program you did. Winvestor, Women Investor. You've done such amazing programs. Have you seen an improvement?
Well, I'm seeing more people talk about it. I'm seeing the media talk more about it. So I think there's definitely more awareness. But this angle of parents has only come because of all our recent surveys and studies. And we will continue to do studies to understand more.
Right.
So this has only come about recently. And what has, people have become more aware that women should take charge of their finances. That part, yes. Because when I started this 12 years ago, probably, I'll tell you very honestly, when media used to come to me, they used to come to me saying, you're a woman in business and we'd like to talk about corporate women in business. I said, well, what do you want to talk about? It's like, oh, it was, I didn't feel that there was enough substance. And I started educating the media, and then others started doing that. But let's talk about women in investing. I'm an investing firm. Ask me more about that. And I feel even though DSP maybe started it, we've got a major movement now, which I'm really happy. This is not a space to be competitive about. This is a movement where when one person does it, I want people to copy and
Yeah.
everyone else does it. Okay, because you need to build up a crescendo in this. It should be singing from everywhere, that it's so in the subconscious of every parent that when I do the next study on the next generation, which will take some time to, today, my generation's, uh, you know, parents who have children, they grow up and I do the survey again. It should be a different answer than what I'm going to do.
I think that's a wonderful way to put it. This show, by the way, before we hit recording, started on a I got goose flesh when Pattu told me this particular story. Pattu, why don't you narrate it? You received an email today on the morning of the recording of this particular show, and I could not get myself to wrap my head around the coincidence of it all. So, over to you, Pattu. What
Yeah.
was that email about?
So before I get to that, I want to tell you that I have this book I wrote a couple of years back called Chinchu Gets a Superpower. So
Okay.
this is for anyone age 10 and above. So it teaches the children how to look at money management. So the children want something for the birthday, and it teaches them how to research a product and choose what is best and what is the best product they would get for the budget possible and so on. So I have two editions of the book. One is for boys and one is for girls. And I can tell you that about 50-50. The girls editions are sold in equal numbers
Happy to
to
hear
that
that.
of
That's
the boys,
amazing.
and that's the ebook format. In Amazon, I could only publish the boys edition, only one of them, because of the ISBN number issues and so on. But a lot of parents have pushed me and just continue to push me to get the girls edition in print as well, because they like to have it on print, because I got an illustrator do some cartoons for it for the kids and so on. So that's a healthy sign. So I think the next generation, the parents have take women independence seriously with respect to finances. So that's good to see. Now, coming back to this email, I got an email this morning from a person who said that the husband is familiar with my work over the past few years, and he has always been telling her to take finances seriously, to understand where we have invested and how to how you can manage it independently. And and he said that right until the day he passed a couple of months ago, and she now needs help. She at least I think she knows where the money is invested in. There are many cases where the women don't even know, but at least in this case she knows, but she doesn't know how to approach. So I have asked her to contact a SEBI registered investment advisor who I know who can help in this aspect. But the good thing is they know somebody who they can contact. But in many cases, what happens is this happens suddenly. Then somebody, some well-meaning uncle or a grandfather will step in and they'll mess up the whole thing. They'll buy some bad products. It'll be a complete mess. At least thankfully they know who to contact, so they've been directed to the advisor. But yeah, so the coincidence is quite striking that it happened today.
Yeah, I mean, if I can add there, I think it's really interesting that you said, an uncle or someone will step in. And then because they're male, they know better. Because they're male, they're
Yeah,
better
absolutely.
investors. Let me tell you, and Putu is probably doing this too, but when you are teaching people how to invest, men are as clueless as women. They're equal in that.
Absolutely.
So let's not decide that women don't know how to invest and men who have invested know everything. And I can
Absolutely.
give you n number of anecdotes about that. So it's you have to go to a registered SEBI financial advisor, and have and someone who's been recommended, and then have them help you with an asset allocation. Not put all your eggs in one basket. That can be a whole separate episode. We can do maybe a sequel to this on how to really invest. Once you make the decision to take charge, but people won't tell you this. The know-it-all doesn't know this many times. And people also want a thrill. So they go for the higher risk. And also, there's a lot that goes into finally making a portfolio for you.
So, Aditi, on this particular point, let me bring a very, very sensitive topic, the topic of my wife, into this episode, right? Um, she's been brought up with her dad taking care of everything, right? It has been a struggle for her to understand where the money is, her own money, etc., etc. He's done a fantastic job. I'm not dissing my dear father-in-law over here at all. But the point is, now at this age, when it's time to take charge, he's further into his years, etc., etc. It's time. I've been pushing her for years. The approach, just like this person who emailed Pattu, is about, okay, now who do I go to next? Who is the expert or the advisor I go to? Are you okay with that? Because I think the premise of this entire episode is to understand it yourself, to understand where your money is yourself. I'm not saying you do the active investing, but this entire attitude of, I guess the first step is okay to take charge and hand it over to somebody else. But the point is, it's the same problem if you hand it over entirely to somebody else. I don't know if I'm making my point
No,
clear.
I'll tell you why. Because then you are still in charge. You have handed it over to someone else. It's your
Right.
money. You have chosen the advisor. You surely need advice. I need advice today. I have a financial advisor just to, remind me, Arey, Aditi, this
Hmm.
is lying in your bank account. Or, Arey, you wanted to do something with the money. This is the right time to maybe redeem from this particular fund. I say, oh, yes, yes, of course. I understand what he's saying. It makes sense. So I should be able to understand what he's saying, but I need
Right.
just someone to remind me, someone to nudge me, and I'll be, yeah, I'm going to take money out from you. Arey, don't do that. Remember, we had put it in there, so your tax will be a little more.
Hmm.
We can do it this way. So I need to run my ideas by someone. Yeah. So I would say if you, can have a financial advisor, there's nothing like it. But you are still in charge. You make the decision who the financial advisor is. The financial advisor has to still ask you before every investment.
Sure.
The financial advisor is a professional who will treat you as a client, not like a father and a daughter, not like a husband and a wife. Very
Amazing.
different relationship.
Thank you. That gives me so much more confidence. And two questions that sprout from that, Aditi. One is, do you see what is the proportion of female financial advisors versus male? Is it easy to find, say, a female financial advisor? Number one. Um, and number two is, perhaps you answer that first.
No, I mean, there are definitely more males. It's probably, again, the same 10% female advisors sort of a thing. Um, but I don't feel women necessarily have to go to women. I used to feel that. But my
Hmm.
focus today is men or women financial advisors just try to get more women as clients, period.
Right.
Okay, give them good advice, give them sound advice.
That's a
I do
fantastic
think
answer.
females do gel with females sometimes more because they can hold each other's hand and they have a lot of emotion stuff. And one of my friends who I gave a lead to a female advisor to, and handed her over there. She says, "Oh, I can talk to her about everything, and she understands."
Hmm.
And we chat, and I tell her
Is
all
that a
my
good thing
emotions.
or?
Yeah, I tell her all my emotions and
Hmm.
why I want to do this and my 5 stories behind this, and she's willing to listen and she's happy. A guy would not be that. He just wants the
Sure.
transaction and move on.
Sure.
So maybe it's in that sense there is a bit of a thread there. That said, I think male or female, it is about who you're comfortable with,
Fantastic. Okay.
who you can trust.
And say somebody is listening to us in Hyderabad, Bangalore, Delhi, Calcutta, Bombay, right? And listening to the show and saying, I'm convinced now that I'm going to take charge of my money and I want to get this financial advisor into my life. What is the first process one does? I don't want to ask my family. I don't want to ask friends. How do I get a professional into my life? Is there a process that you can share?
First, you should ask people who's your
Fair
financial
enough.
advisor. Like, do a bit of a survey, um, get some names, meet those people, see who you're most comfortable, who you're gelling, who's going to give you the time, who's not going to think you're too small.
Mhm.
Sometimes you always feel, is it too small for this person? And
I've got that feeling very often. Yeah.
yeah, so you interview everyone, and there'll be other people you gel with, right? So you have to see. Most important thing for women is not to feel conscious of asking questions. Women have this thing, you don't realize it, but I'll tell you, most women, that I'll look stupid if I ask this question.
Mm.
Okay, who are you comfortable that you feel you can ask the question without feeling stupid? And the most basic question, I don't, when you say the market has gone up, I don't understand what that means. What is the market? What is an SIP people talk about? Can you explain it to me? Why is
Mm.
it really good? Why is it important? People are saying it, so I believe it. What really is a stock? It's, she should feel comfortable asking any question.
Yeah. That's what you try and do on the show, Aditi, as well. And a lot of guys as well ask the most basic questions to Pattu. And that's what this show is all about. I mean, we try to make it as comfortable for everyone. And I hope listening to Aditi, if you're a woman, please feel comfortable to ask any question at all. And if you're more comfortable than that, you're more than welcome to be on our show as well, as others have. Wanting to move on to a completely different topic, right? Pattu, if I might ask for your help here as well, but let's hear what Aditi has to say about this. Does a woman have to approach investing any differently from a man?
I mean, I do think so. Depends on her circumstance. So if I'm a young woman and I'm not married and I'm working, uh, you know, I can, and just as a man, I think it would be more equal. Once I get married and I want to start a family and I'm still working, and I kind of, a lot of women have this dilemma when I start a family, will I have to stop working? Will
Hmm.
I be overwhelmed? And if I stop working, which I'm so used to doing, will my income stop? Which means I'll be dependent again, which I don't want to because I've been independent for 10 years before I had this child and I was working. So you start working at 22, you decide your child at 32. At 22, you should know at some point you'll be deciding a child. Start investing so that in those few years that you take off for maternity leave, you have passive income coming, which a
Hmm.
man doesn't have to worry about. A woman will, most women will have this in their life, this hiatus in their
Right. It's
life. Men don't
almost
have
like
to.
Pattu, sorry to interject, Aditi. It's almost I'm feeling it's tougher for women because remember the basics of our show from episode one has been always have an emergency fund. Make sure your your insurances are in place. It's almost like they need something more. It's retirement before the final retirement because they have a hiatus of no. It's
Exactly.
it's so tough
It's
once
a
you think
mini
about it. What if
retirement, and
yeah,
sometimes it becomes a long retirement.
Pattu, what about you? What are your thoughts about this entire? Do women have to approach investing differently from men?
So I largely agree with what Aditi said. So I once worked with a author a few years back, and I wanted her to write about women and investing more in the website because I can't do it. And she said, "What's the point?" I was taken aback by
Mm,
that. She said, What do you mean? What's the point?" I can write, but will the men in their life allow her to take those decisions? Will the men give them the freedom? That was a few
mm,
years ago. I hope things are slightly different now, but at least with respect to the young earners. But that's the big issue here is what Aditi talked about, that the parents would approach teaching money management for a boy child differently compared to a girl child, because they think that the girl child will be married off and sent to
mm,
another home, and the boy is seen as the investment he will take care of the parents later on. And that's, I mean, it's not explicitly mentioned anywhere out, but that's the implicit understanding. It's very dark and uncomfortable to think about this. So how much freedom does the woman really have throughout her life is what is going to define how independent she is.
mm,
And one thing I notice in at least in a few families I'm familiar with, and in my case, my wife does not want to learn about investing. She's
mm,
made it very clear to me. I mean, I have kept a Google sheet with all my investments and given her access. So just in case, she knows, and she knows who to contact, because I keep talking about RIAs, this, that, and so she these terms, she knows what to do, just in case. But the f- in she says, you don't um, help me out in the kitchen. You take my presence in the kitchen for granted. Therefore, I take your role in money management for granted. That works. So
Hmm.
don't bother me. That's her stand. And
mm,
I don't know. I am stumped. I don't know what to approach. I mean, it's not the same in the sense that, I mean, it's easy to outsource cooking than to outsource money management, but that's how she is. And I know for a fact there are many women like who fall in the same kind of emotional state. They believe that somebody else will take care of that, because the spouse is taking my role in household chores or taking care of the kids education for granted. So why should I do one more? This is just one more job, why should I do it? So it's a dark subject. The more I think about it, the more I blame myself and men in general. But I have more, I'm looking at more of problems than of solutions. That's the way I
Let
look
me
at it.
add something to that, Pattu, before we open it up to Aditi, because I think it's very important Aditi addresses this. One is, to add to Pattu's wife's situation, I'll tell you about my wife, right? Every time this topic comes up, and it sometimes comes up with friends, very close friends, and you said, I just don't get it sometimes. And I said, why? It's simple. It's math. It's etc. Etc. No, I just don't get it. And she's somebody who's got a very senior job, within multinational, etc. etc. So a very smart, very well educated woman who, for some reason, has a mental block against investments. So, Aditi, what would you say to Pattu's wife and to my wife and to the women they represent to inspire them that some change is needed?
So also it's very interesting because I come across the same that people are just not interested. Women are not interested, and yes, they do take it for granted that some man in their life will figure it out. Then, and I think one thing to tell them, if maybe they've had kids, they've finished off their hiatus period. One is to tell them that if you're young, you will have this, and you should do this and that. But two is, did you know? Sadly, men, live less. Women outlive men on average. Okay, and this is, I think, my Pattu is concerned. And it's very important. And everyone today has a life insurance policy, so something will come in their name again. And I'll tell you a story, and it's a sad story, but maybe anecdotes really help women
Yeah,
to wake up.
absolutely.
They love stories. We all love stories, but women really love stories. So there was a young man in his late 20s, early 30s in our form, and he used to come every day, train, usual way people come. One day we didn't hear from him, and we realized that he fell in a train and died. And he left behind a wife and a child. And she was young and very conservative family, and all of that. She got money from the life insurance. She got money from our company. Um, and she got money from yet another foundation that our family had. So she had a good pot to feel comfortable on day one. I would say
Mm,
day five. The minute that happened, what Pattu said happened, where the uncles and Arey, we are there,
yeah.
no? We'll take care of it. What are you going to do with the money? You only need this much for a house expenses, no? The rest we'll take care of. What do you mean she only needs for house expenses? She has other, she wants to entertain herself, she wants to shop, let her do what she wants. It's her money and let her be in charge. Luckily, we stepped in. I mean, it was a mutual fund company and we told them, no one is touching this. And we told her how it's going to be invested and that she was in charge. And this is many years later. I should actually get an update on how she is now in the story. But 10, 12 years. If she really had listened to everything that we said, her pot of money would have been at least 10 times more today. Um, at least, but to think, okay, this is 12 years ago, Kasturi, 10 to 12. So I just want to say that you don't want anyone to get conned like this or feel women need to feel that they will not be cheated anytime in life, and that makes them feel confident. That can only happen when they learn a little bit about it. Even if you have a financial advisor, you're in charge, you trust the financial advisor, and you know what questions to ask.
It really
So
is
maybe
time
give them
take
story.
charge. It's time women take charge. It is their money. I mean, for me, that is the most,
Yeah.
that's the start of every conversation, right? It is your money. You should know about it. And there's a weird sense of control and power that comes when you take charge of your money, right? And I want everyone to experience that. I- Instead of depending on somebody else, instead of constantly having to, ask somebody about something, you have made these decisions, and try and experience that emotion once. And and once you do, you taste something that you don't want to let go of, right? um all right, we have a ton of questions, and this conversation can go in many different ways. The next question is about gold, Aditi. For some reason, every time women and investing is mentioned, the topic of gold comes up. And I'm not sure why. What is your view about that? Pattu, what's your view about that? Why should it matter whether it is a woman or a man with regards to gold and investing? Aditi, your thoughts.
Well, I think they both should have some exposure to gold. I mean, even our family office has some exposure. Don't have too much. I would say gold is not appreciated for years, and then suddenly in the last 10 to 15 years, you had a big number and a big jump. It doesn't mean that's going to go on forever. Gold is liquid, but not as liquid as meaning you just can't quickly go and sell it. And depends on what kind of gold you're going to buy. Jewelry, who's going to attest that that is, of course, you can go to Tanishq and other branded stores now, and you know that it's real gold. But otherwise, you don't know
Hmm.
what the actual content of the gold is. So there are a lot of issues. You can invest through gold ETFs. You can invest through sovereign gold bonds, and there's some tax-free advantages there. ETFs, of course, the tax-free advantage used to be that for 3 years, if you hold it, after that you get a tax advantage. That has gone away after April 1st. But if you had invested before April 1st, that advantage still holds. So, you know, invest in gold a little bit. I would still say have fun with your gold if you're a woman. Yes, wear it as jewelry, keep it safe. It's a pain, though, when you have jewelry to keep it safe. Because then everything gets locked in and you don't end up wearing it. So that's my view on gold. I've been more neutral to a little averse to have gold as a complete investment.
Pattu, any particular views on gold?
I'm perfectly okay with gold as a consumption, as a
Mm.
jewelry thing.
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of gold as an investment because it's an asset class that thrives on fear. It goes up when everybody's scared, whereas equity is a much more hopeful asset class. When everybody's happy and the future is bright, equity moves up. So I would
Interesting.
prefer I would prefer equity. Also, I mean, you can diversify your portfolio, but most people don't know how to quantify the diversification. They start off with 10% this, 10% that. But after 5 years, 6 years, I've asked so many people this question at so-called DIY investors. Tell me, how do you quantify this diversification? I've not had a proper, meaningful answer. One guy gave me an answer, but he was the CFA. Of course, the CFA will know the answer. So most people, it's for many people, I would say it's clutter. They don't know the risks associated with gold because gold is as volatile as equity. It and much of the appreciation in the past has come from the forex. As she said, for many years, gold in USD was underwater for several years, but our gold in INR moved up because of the opening up of the economy and
Appreciation of the
appreciation and
rupee.
so it's a tricky asset. Only in the last few years, in the last decade or so, gold INR and gold USD are more in step with each other because the rupee is much more a robust currency now. So yeah, it's a very deep topic. Of course, if you know what you're doing, you can always diversify your portfolio with gold. And for example, you have multi-asset funds. You don't even need to buy gold separately. I would prefer a multi-asset fund which has got these three asset classes.
Which is
There are
professionally
different
managed.
ways to there are different ways to go, but as a consumable, I think there should be no debate about it.
So
But
safe to
I
say
just
it's a sure. Go ahead, Pattu.
sorry, I was just thinking about this. I've never bought any gold. I've been married for 22 years now. We bought many DSLRs, but not gold. So it depends on the. I, I mean, it's wrong to say only the women prefer jewelry. There are many. I know many men who
Absolutely.
and
course.
look at the podcast. The image. So
I don't know if you've seen the cover art of our show,
yeah.
Aditi. It annoys Pattu on every single episode, but the viewers love it, right? And that's how we imagine Pattu to be. There's a question forming in my mind as this episode progresses, and I must address it, right? And I would like both of you all to try and answer this about this mini retirement, about motherhood being a mini retirement. Does that mean a woman who starts work at 21, 22 versus a guy who starts work at 21, 22 should be more aggressive with their investments? Should their allocation be more towards equity versus debt? I have to ask very particular questions because it's true. It is a mini retirement. They're going to have a hiatus from earning. However unfortunate that sounds, how does one approach investing from day one?
Siddhant, you don't know when you're going to have a child. Investing and asset allocation depends on your time horizon.
Hmm.
Okay, so it has nothing to do with male, female, and you don't know when you're going to have the kid. It's
Hmm.
better that what we tell people is always keep 2 years worth of money, as you say, emergency funds in the
Hmm.
liquid fund. I'm going to need this money over 2 years. I may have a kid, I may not have a kid. Because by 22, you know whether you're going to be married in the next, if you're with someone or not, or what your basic idea. Within 2 years, you kind of know whether you'll be married within 2 years.
Hmm.
Okay, and then the child maybe 6 months or nine months later. So you kind of know. So let's keep a little bit aside in the liquid fund anyway. Um, the rest of the money should be as an asset allocation, um, that you will not need. That you will need part of the money, right? You may not need all of the money
Right.
over 5 years. After 5 years, say when you're 22, because by 27, what is the average age now? 27, 28, 29.
Right.
So that's the way I'd look for it. But I don't think a 22-year-old woman and a man necessarily have to think of it very differently. Asset
Interesting.
allocation is interesting. Is
Pattu, what's your approach?
Uh, First, I think that many parents are having their first kid older and older.
Yeah, absolutely. I had mine
Uh,
when I was 30. I forgot. But anyway, post 30.
so the other thing is when we say mini retirement, um, it's not one need not necessarily draw an income from this money. When I mean, let's say a girl starts investing at 22 right after college, after getting her first salary and so on, and let's say she becomes the mother by late 20s or early 30s
Sure.
for the
So
first
that's a
time.
good 9 or 10 years.
Yeah, 8 years, let's say, whatever. uh, During that period, if she has been investing systematically, and let's say an asset allocation of 50% equity, 50% fixed income, she would have a good chunk of corpus to her name. And that would it doesn't matter if uh, whether one draws out from the corpus or not. That corpus can just be there. I mean, let's say the
Hmm.
income has stopped temporarily, she has to quit her job, take care of the child, whatever, few years, whatever. But that is going to give, hopefully, uh, the women immense confidence that, I mean, I don't have any assets to my name. There are many women who feel that all assets are in my husband's name. I don't have any to my name. That at least won't be there. You don't need to draw from. When we say mini retirement, it doesn't mean we're going to draw out for expenses, but that confidence would be there going forward. That is enough, in my opinion.
Fair enough. So, no different approach to the emergency fund, no different approach to asset allocation, and how a man would approach investing.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, as long as it's liquid, it's
Hmm.
it's something that you can always
You're
pull out
right.
anytime and
You're right.
use.
So not land. I'm investing in
Huh.
land for my, investing in a flat so that when I have a child, I can make some money from that. No.
Fair enough. And thank you so much. I mean, it's been a very pleasurable chat. Aditi, if there's anything that we have not covered on this very interesting topic, perhaps now's the time to mention it. And my last question would be, is there one inspiring anecdote that you'd like to tell us about of somebody that perhaps one of your programs reached out to and you've seen this change and what that person says or describes about their journey? Or any person from your personal experience who has genuinely made that switch to the other side of taking charge?
Well, firstly, where you said that, is there anything that we've not covered? I think we've been very good, covered a lot. There's much more we can cover on now that you're a woman and you've decided to invest. What next?
Sure.
DSP has this learn cycle, www.dspim.com/learn. And they're modules. You can say you're a beginning investor, an intermediate, or you're a advanced investor. And after
Sure.
the beginner, you'll become an intermediate and you'll go on to advanced. And that helps to build your confidence. It tells you where to start, tells you the very basics of investing in very simple videos, which I have personally edited the script of. So I would encourage everyone to go there. Um, I also want to say, my friends say, why can't the husband invest my money?
Hmm.
I'm okay with him
Yeah,
doing,
that's a very
and
good question.
and
How do
and
you answer that?
and many times, you know, I tell them no because of all the other reasons, right? That what if something happens to him? God forbid, there's a divorce, a lot of
Sure.
things like that. But most importantly is that your risk profile could be different than his. What
Hmm.
is the meaning of risk profile? Risk profile is, and remember, it's your money. But risk profile is something like, I am okay bungee jumping or skydiving, but you're not.
Hmm.
I'm, I get the thrill from that risk and I'm willing to take it. You're not. Okay, that's what different risk tolerance is. And we have to respect that. Now the husband say, Arey, I do, but it's her money. She's saying, Arey, I don't want to lose anything. The market goes down. I
Beautifully
get
put.
scared. This, that. Arey, what are you scared of? I'm doing it. No, I'm doing it. But it's her money. She doesn't want to take the
Hmm.
risk. Respect that. You will
Hmm.
take it because it's your money. You do what you want. And let me tell you, there can be a lot of arguments later on, especially if he takes too much risk and something goes wrong.
Absolutely.
Why should you want to create an issue in your marriage from something that could be prevented? So, from the very beginning, know your risk tolerance and please manage it separately. Discuss things. I'm not saying hide
Hmm.
anything from your spouse. Discuss things. This is what I'm doing. This have different financial advisors or the same financial advisor giving different advice because of the risk tolerances. But manage your own money, take your own investment decisions, and invest according to your risk tolerance so you can sleep at night.
That's fantastic. I'm going to take that into my home. I never thought
Mhm.
about this. My risk tolerance is most definitely different from my wife's. And that's such a beautiful thing to put into my mind. Aditi, do you notice if women
And
have uh, a higher risk appetite versus men or lower? Is that something which is a thing
all
or
depends, all
it
depends.
depends?
Maybe on
Personalities, yeah.
average, they have a little less because, in general, women, and therefore they've become, I feel, more prudent investors. I don't have any data, but they are more patient. They invest, according to a risk, to an asset allocation, and they're not looking for the next cool thing. And then they forget about the investments. This is my friends. And then they do much better versus someone who needs, they've called activity bias, these husbands or men who want to take some big risks, invest here, invest there, because they want to talk about it at their next cocktail
They want to
party.
feel
It's the
useful. I've
coolest
done
thing.
something.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and then they'll get out of this and then they'll get into this and then they'll talk about it again. And then for them, it becomes a competition.
Hmm.
Investing is not a competition. And I think because women don't chat about it in their parties and it's not really a cool topic to talk about, you don't see that kind of crazy behavior that you see in men.
Hmm.
So maybe the difference, this is a small anecdotal thing, huh? And I've read one or two articles on it, one of which was the Wall Street Journal. But I have no data and hard evidence to prove that. And I think your last question was on what inspired me or so I've had friends who came to me in 2011, and my friend is, she's like, what do I do? They keep asking me, and she's earning a salary, and the bank keeps calling me saying, do something with your money, and they're saying this, they're saying this. I said, no, you need to get a financial advisor. You need to get a woman. She says, oh, I still don't know anything, but she has her own financial advisor, and I hear how she speaks. I think it's just an osmosis process. Why should anything be in the bank? I'd put it in arbitrage fund because I get a better tax. Like the way she speaks is so
Hmm.
like it's so obvious. And this is her. And she still says, oh, I don't know anything. But actually, certain things have just been now inculcated directly into her. And
But
she
she's still
speaks
worried
so
about the impression
professionally.
that she should not appear to be somebody who thinks
I
and
don't
talks
know
about
about
money. That's
that.
interesting.
Uh,
Yeah.
maybe, I don't know, but I feel um, it's not cool enough.
Yeah.
Investing is not cool in the women's arena. Let me tell you, it's not cool to talk about. Once in a while, it's cool, but it's boring after a point. Even I get
Mm,
bored if I have to sit with my girlfriends and this is what we discuss over dinner. Like so
yeah.
boring. But for guys, it's fun. So I think that's really the difference here. And as I said, imparting this knowledge, but I'm doing it as a teacher. I practice what I teach,
Mm,
but I'm still doing it as a teacher. It's not dinner conversation.
fair enough. But to any last thoughts as we close this absolutely delightful episode?
Yeah, I think the men need to do more. I think the men need to involve their spouses. So I took a poll. To just to give some context to Aditi. So um, I am a founder patron of a group of SEBI RIAs called Fee Only India, and these are advisors who charge only a flat fee. That is, the
Hmm.
fee is not a part of is not a percentage of the assets under advisement. So
Right.
it's just a flat fee, and this has been. I have had a curated list for the last 10 years now, approximately, since the SEBI regulations came out in 2013, and Fee Only India has been in an inception a few years after that. So more than thousand readers would be clients for these advisors. I took a poll, and about, I would say, 7-8% of the clients have engaged with the advisor, although they are DIY advisors and perfectly capable of managing the investments on their own, but they wanted continuity in case they get busy with the jobs or they pass on. So they brought in their spouses to the engagement, and the wives now know who to contact in case in case of emergency or whatever. So just for that, and that's a good. I would say that's a very promising step. And uh, there are many women who are homemakers, and for them, I think the men folk have to do a lot more. Bring them on, even for any small purchases, big purchases, obviously investment decisions, and make them feel that they have also earned that money. It's not that somebody goes to work, they are the only person earning, but the person staying behind, taking care of the household, taking care of the kids, they are equally entitled to that the salary that they get, and so they should have an equal say in everything that goes on with respect to money, whether it's purchases or investment. So the men need to step up and do more. I think things are improving. Chauvinism is slowly dying. It's not dying as fast as the woman would like it, but it's dying slowly. So hopefully the future is brighter.
We certainly hope you're right, Pattu. I'd like to end on this particular thought, right? To all the men out there, you need to do this because it's the right thing to do. To all the women out there, uh, think about this. Would you ever trust your father or your spouse or your brother to shop for clothes for you, right? He'd probably get an ugly, oversized dress. Would you ever trust them to buy that sari for you, that salwar kameez for you, or for that dress? No, because you know how you look the best in those particular clothes. And that's exactly, perhaps, is that a fair analogy, Aditi, of what risk appetite is? You know what your personality is, you know what is right for you. And therefore, it's time that you take charge of your own investments and financial investing.
Actually, you
Um,
may not know what is right for you, but you know how you feel
yeah.
when you
You know how you
lose
feel
money.
when you wear that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So only you can know how you feel.
Aditi, thank you so much for your time. We'll try and
You're
bring you
welcome.
in further episodes as well as our listeners, and I hope our listeners from that 17% start to become 30%, and then maybe eventually 50% in an ideal world. We're inviting all women to listen to our show and watch our show and become investors and take control of their financial independence. But to thank you for your time, Aditi, once again, it was an absolute pleasure to have you on Let's Get Rich with Pattu.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Aditi.
Thanks. Thank you.